Hello, kind people. So today we begin the journey that is Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill. Today I'll be covering chapter 1. So the goal of this book is quite lofty. It aims to instill in you a success consciousness. And this consciousness, if you can develop it, is supposed to lead you to financial riches. In other words, the book claims that it can make you rich if you follow what it says. And that's easy enough to say, but will it work? Right? How can a book make me rich? Why isn't everybody who's read this book become rich? Right? So in this book, Napoleon Hill identifies the character traits which will lead one to financial success, and he argues that these can be learned. So if you follow the instructions given in this book, then you should become rich. And again, that's quite the goal to set for oneself as an author. And let's see if he can actually make that happen for us. So something interesting is that the book is about making you rich, but Hill is not going to tell you what business you should run to become rich or what you should desire. Rather, he sets the challenge up for you to decide. Decide how much money you want and what service you're going to render in order to get it. It's not even necessary at this point to know exactly how to operate that specific service you desire, which is supposed to get you rich. He does get into that in following chapters, but for now, it's enough to know that he's not going to prescribe a type of business or something like that. Instead, he puts the challenge on you to decide how much money you want to make and what business you're going to do to get that money. And you don't even know how to run that business at this point in the book. So I'm going to circle back to the goal of this book many times throughout the series, as it's important to remind ourselves what the objective here is, in case we begin to get caught up in the weeds of each individual chapter, right? We're going to keep being reminded that the goal of this book is to make us financially wealthy. Hill's Ontology. So, for Napoleon Hill, thoughts are real things. And he's going to flesh this out thoroughly throughout the book. However, for now, know that thoughts aren't just something that happens secretly in our brains that have no consequence or things that we have no control over. The first line of chapter 1 is, "Truly, thoughts are things, and powerful things at that, when they are mixed with definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire for their translation into riches or other material objects." We are our thoughts. Even when you sit and begin to think of yourself as a person, you can't separate who you are from your thinking. There is no you without thought. We are thinking beings. We cannot escape this. We live with our own thoughts, and they are real, the same way the external world is real. Right? So how does this tie into the book? Well, if it's true that we are our thoughts, then it follows that if we are ever to even have the potential of becoming successful and getting rich, then we must first have the thought of becoming rich. Of course, you can be born into wealth, but that's not who this book is aimed at. If you aren't born into wealth and want to become financially rich, you can never do that without first thinking about it. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't even know you want wealth, then it'll never come. The strength of our thoughts. Now, if someone were to ask you, what is the first step towards becoming rich or being successful at any goal, what would you say? Right? And Hill's response would be that the start of any achievement starts with one's thoughts. Hill and myself are going to repeat this at the risk of tedium to drill this thought, funnily enough, into your mind. And one of the best ways to shift your thinking patterns is through repetition. But that'll come later. And for now, just know that there's a purpose to this repetition. And if you can't handle the repetition of these thoughts right now, which are aimed at improving your financial situation, then success will most likely never come. You have to think about riches. And on page 2 and 3, Hill writes, "When a man really desires a thing so deeply that he is willing to stake his entire future on a single turn of the wheel in order to get it, he is sure to win. I saw he had made up his mind to stand by until he succeeded. It was what he thought that counted." Hill even writes that if one understood the significance of this quote right here, that they could stop reading the book. And again, that's quite a promise, right? Like, oh yeah, if you understand this small paragraph here, and you actually understand it, then you don't need anything else in the book. So our thoughts are important to Hill, and it's easier to see why when we think of the person who doesn't control their thoughts. And let's say, for example, I simply go with the flow. right? Today I wake up feeling sad. Tomorrow I wake up feeling happy. The next day I wake up determined. And the day following I think of a different business idea. I didn't choose the emotions I woke up with, sure. I think about these feelings and they feel real. I put no effort into changing them. Maybe the day I'm sad, somebody comes around and makes me laugh, distracting my thoughts of sadness for a while, and I feel happy. However, after the discussion, we go our separate ways and I revert to feeling sad. In this scenario, I took no responsibility towards controlling my emotions. I could have taken control of my thoughts and tried to force myself to think about positive things. And yes, I woke up feeling sad, but I'll spend 5 minutes thinking about what I'm grateful for, even things that I'm excited about. I can force myself to smile, and maybe that'll make strangers smile back at me, which will actually convert my inauthentic, forced smile into a real, genuine smile. Right? I could treat myself to a drink I enjoy and think about, this is a drink I enjoy. I'm happy that I got this opportunity right now, and I will control my thoughts towards the outcome that I want to happen. Yes, I could fail at controlling my emotions through thought. But again, the alternative is a hoping or wishing that the feelings just go away themselves and that there is no consistency. Every day is surrendered to luck and chance. And here we're assuming that we don't want to place our financial success, right, which again is the goal of the book, on luck or chance. We must take this responsibility into our own hands and voluntarily. The world is never going to force you to attain more than you have. You must seek it out yourself. The one thing we have ultimate control over, argues Hill, are our thoughts. And that is the starting point of success, emphasized here again because it cannot be taken lightly. Any success, hitting any goal, turning our dreams into reality, changing any situation, cannot happen if we don't first control our thoughts. So where do our thoughts come from? Of course, we cannot control which thoughts enter our brain. Most of the time we have stray thoughts that come seemingly out of nowhere. There are some thoughts which enter our brain which we actually feel alienated from, right? So no, we don't have ultimate control over what we think. However, once we do have the thought, we have ultimate power in directing them. How long we focus on a thought, the amount of weight we give to it, how much we identify with it, or whether or not we nurture it. That is what we have full control over. So, to ever become rich, we must first have the thought of becoming rich. To ever become successful, we must first have the thought of becoming successful. To ever be a good partner, or be faithful, or disciplined, or strong, then we must first have the thought. And that sounds easy. On page 2, Hill writes about the person that is willing to stake his entire future on a single turn of the wheel in order to get it. Now, does that sound like a hope or a wish? Hill is talking about this person's thoughts being so strong that he found a hill, and there's no pun intended there, to die on. This person isn't second guessing. They don't worry about backup plans. No if it works out. No ambivalence. It's reducing their desire to either I am willing to do everything it takes to make this happen, or I will die trying to get it. Again, it's easy enough to say this, but he's talking about the people who actually mean it. That is the strength which one's thoughts can reach. This person would persist longer, try harder, push through resistance, view failures as obstacles that can be overcome. And the key difference between that person and the person going with the flow is just the difference in what they think. Now you might ask, there is nothing which I'm that passionate about. I don't know what I'm willing to die for, if there is even such a thing. And Hill doesn't believe you wake up with a burning desire of this kind. And of course, some people do. But rather that when you have an idea, you must actively try to strengthen and maintain that desire by repetition and an active control of your thoughts. You must nurture the thoughts of success until they become an obsession. For example, I may wake up on New Year's Eve, hungover, but that's neither here nor there, and start a resolution to go to the gym. I've decided to go 3 times a week, and I'm certain that this time it won't be like last year. This time I really want it. I have the desire. I'm gonna buy new gym clothes. I'm really excited, and I go the first week, good. Pat myself on the back. Second week, easy. I crush it. Third week, I wake up, I go to my car, and I notice I have a pop tire. that's reasonable. I don't go. And another few days pass, and I might go again. However, I notice that I'm not seeing results. Plus, spending so much time there when I do go, and I'm getting tired for work because I start, waking up earlier to go to the gym and then getting ready for work, all that. I start thinking negatively about the gym, and if at all, right? And it doesn't become a habit or an obsession. Now, in that case, what do you think is going to happen? I probably won't go. My desire will eventually fade, or I'll get lazy, or I'll wake up with another desire, which is back to luck and chance, right? Or I'll go consistently for a month, hit a plateau, and instead of learning how to overcome it, I just give up, right? I think I'm stuck. This same pattern can happen with any goal. If we don't have this baseline control over our thoughts and aim them at something, then we cannot be certain that we will ever succeed. We might out of sheer luck, but again, we don't want to base our lives on luck and chance. So, our thoughts become an obsession. Now, if I tell you to repeat in your own mind 100 times the thought that I will go to the gym today, how many times do you think you can get through before even thinking that same thought gets boring? I bet most of us can't get to thinking the same thought 50 times before getting bored or changing the thought. We simply do not control our thoughts to the extent which we can. We act like our thoughts happen to us and live our lives in the autopilot of our habits, and only think about base things like choosing between different kinds of fast food, right? All this just to show that any starting point of financial success must start as a thought. This thought must be held in the mind until it becomes realized, which can take years. And we must accept that it might never happen. Knowing all that, are you still willing to try? Right? How bad do you want to get wealthy? Is this a simple want or something you need to make happen? Now, becoming success conscious. In one of his lectures, Hill brings up the question, what does it mean to be health conscious? And then he asks, well, what would you say, right? And the health conscious person is something like somebody who's going to count their calories, say no to cake, and if they say yes to cake, they've made allowances and consider it among their overall eating routine. They might even feel guilty about missing their goal or not going to the gym. The thought of their health constantly enters their mind, sometimes against their will because it's become a habit. Health has become an obsession. Now they might actually want to ignore eating healthy for the day and then still end up feeling shame for giving in. Now, he turns the question around and asks, what does it mean to be success conscious, right? And now, what would you say? And the success conscious person has their mind set on progress towards their goals. They are constantly striving to improve. They do not fear failure and rejection, and instead, they know that it will come in many forms on their path towards any goal. That doesn't stop them. If they don't make progress, they feel guilt or shame. This isn't supposed to be fun all the time. It calls for a great sacrifice. The person may be filled with negative emotion and yet must be willing to accept the difficulties that will present themselves because they value their goal above feelings of fake or temporary comfort. So, in closing of chapter 1, the introduction, I want to just bring up 2 quotes on page 17 and 18, which lead into the second chapter, which is on desire. So on page 17, Hill writes, our brains become magnetized with the dominating thoughts which we hold in our minds. And just before that, he writes, this power makes no attempt to discriminate between destructive thoughts and constructive thoughts, that it will urge us to translate into physical reality thoughts of poverty just as quickly as it will influence us to act upon thoughts of riches. And then on page 18, before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with intense desire for riches, that we must become money conscious until the desire for money drives us to create definite plans for acquiring it. Stay tuned for chapter 2.